As you're preparing for the mid-chapter 1 test that's going to be tomorrow, this is the review, and I wanted to make sure that everyone understood how to do each problem so there weren't any questions. And so I'm hoping you're watching this video the night before to double check the work that you did in class to make sure it's correct. So starting with number 1, 2, and 3, you're supposed to actually express those fractions or mixed numbers as decimals, and using bar notation, which means a repeating decimal if it's required or needed. And so when you have 3/4 in your pocket, we know that that is 75 cents. You should automatically know your quarters. This being 3/4 or 75 hundredths. That one should be one that you memorize pretty quickly. But if you don't know, then you're going to take 3 and you're going to divide it by 4 and do long division. And so in the case of adding a decimal, adding a 0, and I'm going to go kind of quick, 7 is 28. I get 20. When I bring down the 0, 4 goes into 25 times. And because it's 75 hundredths, the 2 is a whole value, so it's read 2 and 75 hundredths, and that should be your first answer. Number 2, 9/11. I will tell you that if you have an 11 on the bottom, this is automatically going to be a repeater. All of your 11s are repeaters. And so we're going to take 9 and we're going to divide it by 11. And so it goes into 98 times, which is 88. And I subtract, and I get 20, and 11 goes into 20. Extend that out a little bit. 1 time, which is 11, subtract, and I get 10 minus 1 is 9. I'm out of room here, so I'm going to go here, 90. And then if you notice, this is where it starts to repeat. So it's going to be an 8, and then a 1, and then an 8, and then a 1. And in the case of this one, I don't have a whole number in front. It's not a mixed number. So the answer is just going to be 81 hundredths repeating. Number 3, you have 4 and 1/9. I want you to start memorizing these, but anytime you have a 9 in the bottom, it's the top number that's repeating. So this should be 1/10 repeating. This only just works for 9s. Also works for 99s. We'll talk about that later. So this is 1 divided by 9. So we'll just double check our math here. 9 goes 1 time. You get 0, 1, you bring down the 0. 9 goes into 10. And if you notice, it's already repeating. So I had a 10 earlier, so this is a repeater. And again, it's got a whole number in front, so it's going to be 4 and 1/10 repeating. Okay, so I hope you're doing this on your own. If you're just trying to copy it as I go along, you're not going to do very well tomorrow, so make sure you're trying these problems on your own. On the next one, I'm expressing each decimal as a fraction or mixed number, and I'm putting it in the simplest form, which means it has to be in the smallest form possible that it can be. So this is where you read it. You write it as a decimal, and then you reduce it. Read it, write it, reduce it. So read it with place value, correct place value. This is 1, and this 1 is in the tenths place. So we read this 1/10. There's a 1 on the top. When you hit 1, you're done. It's reduced. Number 5, read it. 4 and that means implies leftovers, 48 hundredths. In the case of 48 hundredths, I know that both numbers are even, so I need to divide it down until it's into its smallest form. I did tell you the other day, just divide by 2 until you can't divide by 2 anymore, then try 3, then try 5, and so on and so forth. Half of 4 is 2, half of 8 is 4, half of 100 is 50, and then you could divide top and bottom by 2 again. Half of 2 is 1, half of 4 is 2, that's 12, half of 50 cents is 25. And 25 is only divisible by 5, therefore we are done. There's no factors in common. Another way to do this is called tic-tac-toe methods. Your teacher should have learned or taught you this if you had Miss Clark last year, where you can actually just do it this way and reduce going down, and you can see each step of the way the reduced fractions there as well, and that's another method. All right, over here we have 9 and 8/10. Oh shoot, I forgot the 4 up front. So this is 4 and 12/25. My apologies, we don't want to forget the whole number up front. That would not be good. So we have 9 and 8/10. We're going to divide top and bottom by half. And so this is going to give us 4/5. So this would be 9 and 4/5. So read it, write it, reduce it. Over to the comparisons, number 7. Notice that the denominators are the same, they're ninths. Also notice that we have -1s up front. This is in the negative realm. And if you think about greater or less than, the greater negative is actually the smaller value because it's getting closer and closer to 0. So 4/9 is a smaller value than 8/9. Therefore, in the negative world, -1 and 4/9 is bigger than -1 and 8/9 because it's closer to 0. -3 and 4/5 versus -3 and 2/5. Again, the denominators are the same. They're like fractions. The -3s are the same. So I'm looking for the one closest to 0. So 2/5 is closer to 0 than 4/5. On number 9, I'm comparing 7/9 and 3/5. You can do butterfly trick, which works really nicely, which just works this way. 9 times 5 is 45. That's the common denominator. And then when you do your butterfly trick, 7 times 5 is 35 is your numerator. 9 times 3 is 27 is your numerator over here. And 35 is bigger than 27 of those 45 pieces. Over to number 10, 4 and 25. If you multiply 25 times 4, you get 100, 4 quarters. So 4 times the 25 gave me that. So 3 times 25 or 3 quarters is 75 cents. And then 14 times 4 is 56. Therefore, this left number is less than the right number. 56 is less than 75. Over to this one, before I actually multiply these two numbers, that's going to be extremely large. You can actually reduce the fractions. So if you don't notice this, both of these powers of 10 can divide by 10 on top and bottom and give you 2/6. And actually, if you divide top by 2 and bottom by 2, you get 1/3. So sometimes it's good to reduce these fractions. And if you don't notice it over here, 8 divided by 8, I can actually divide top and bottom by 8 because 8 goes into 24. And this actually gives me 1/3 as well. And I don't have to do my butterfly trick, and I don't have to multiply and find a common denominator because I just reduced them. And sometimes you need to look for that. Couldn't reduce these fractions here, and I couldn't reduce these fractions here. But these can be reduced for sure. And then back over here, I can't reduce 4/9 or 5/12 by anything in common. So I'm just going to use my butterfly trick. 4 times 12 is 48. 9 times 5 is 45. 48 is bigger. So a lot of this, though, you have to be careful is to be sure you know how to multiply correctly in order to get your answers correct. Adding and subtracting integers. When you're adding or subtracting, like signs go together. So 7 reds, 8 reds, give me 15 reds. When it's a subtraction problem, keep, change, only on subtraction. Keep 27 the same, change it to an addition problem, and change the sign of the positive 49 to a negative 49. When the signs are different and I'm adding, I'm really subtracting. 27 of these yellows will cancel out 27 of the 49 reds. They will zero pair. And I will be left with 22 red colors. So negative 22. I have more reds than I do yellows. Number 15, another subtraction problem, keep, change, keep the same. Change it to adding the opposite color. I have negatives plus more negatives, and reds just make more reds. So I'm going to add those two together. And it's going to be a red answer, negative 32. 72 plus negative 6. I have 6 reds, 72 yellows. They're different colors, so they will merge and create 0 pairs. And I will be left with 66 yellows because I had more yellows than I did reds. Subtraction problem, so keep, change. Negative 19 plus more negative 20s would give me negative 39. Number 18, subtraction problem, keep, change, adding a negative. I have 32 reds, 13 yellows. I'm going to subtract the 2, and I'm going to make sure I borrow, and I get 19 of my reds. Really need to practice those skills on keep, change, change only for subtraction. Flipping over to the back side, number 19, a scuba diver dives to a depth of 50 feet. So if we're diving, that means we're at negative 50 feet. Then it says he rises 15 feet. That's a positive 15 feet. He sinks 12, so he's going under 12 feet. And then he rises 20 feet. Write an addition expression. Well, there it is right there, all written out. There's my addition expression. Then determine the sum and explain its meaning. So if I'm going to add these together, there's 2 ways. You can work from left to righty-righty, or you can combine your negatives and your positives and then work with the problem there. I'm going to go ahead and do what I just said, and I'm going to go ahead and combine my negative with my negative here. So a negative 50 and a negative 12. When I have negatives and negatives, I get more negatives. 12 and 50 make 62. I'm going to add my positives with my positives. So 15 and 25 together make 35. If you notice, we dove more than we went up. So my answer is going to be a depth of, and the signs are different. So I'm going to do subtraction, and I wind up with going down a depth of 26 feet. So he's under water 27 feet down. Question number 20. I have a positive times a negative. So here we are with baby face. So a positive times a negative will give me a negative. When the signs are different, the answer is negative, and 7 times 8 is 56. A lot of this is going to be knowing your math facts. Negative 400 divided by 20. Cross off 1 power of 10. It's really negative 40 divided by negative 2. When the signs are the same, the answer is positive. Half of 40 is 20, and it is a positive 20. And I'm going to go ahead and box my answers here. Don't let your equal sign get mixed up with your negatives. Be very careful on that. 22, the signs are different. One is negative, one is positive. Therefore, my answer is negative. It takes 9 threes to make 27. Number 23, a negative times a negative is a positive. So I have 19 times 4, which should give me 76. And it's positive because the negatives negate each other. Negative times a negative on baby face is a positive. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. I am going to have a negative. A lot of you get upset because you're like, I don't know how to do this. This is a long division problem. 31 doesn't go into 1. It doesn't go into 12. 124, well, I got to figure that out. Well, I'm guessing that it ends in a 4, and 1 times 4 gives me a 4, so let's try that. I get 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12, and that's my answer. So this is actually, the answer is negative 4. So the signs are different, the answer is negative. And the last problem on here, make sure you do the top part first. I have negative 113 plus a positive 1. The signs are different. I actually subtract because this is a positive and those are negatives. This one yellow will cancel out one of the reds. So it leaves me negative 112, and then I divide by 4. So the problem really here is negative 112 divided by 4. Again, I take 112 and divide by 4. 4 goes into 11 2 times, which is 8. I get 32. 4 goes into 32 8 times. My answer is negative divided by a positive. The signs are different. Baby face. The signs are different. My answer is negative, either that way or that way. So my answer is negative 28. So you should be ready for your quiz tomorrow. These are all of the skills that you have to be good at. If you need any further help or want to practice some more, be sure to go to khanacademy.com and sign in with Google. This is also found in the Google Classroom at resources down at the bottom of the page for math. So again, that's khanacademy.com. And if you sign in with your Google account, you can practice adding, subtracting integers, multiplying, dividing, comparing, whatever you need to work with integers in general, just to get better practice with those skills. And your test is tomorrow. See you then.